Hi, I'm Robert Johnson. I am the location pastor at our Leawood location of Church of the Resurrection and one of your co-hosts for Resurrection Stories.
And I'm Angie McCarty. I serve as one of the pastors here as well. Welcome to Resurrection Stories, a podcast about hope, purpose, transformation, and service. Each week, you'll hear from a guest connected to Church of the Resurrection who is living out their faith in inspiring ways. Our hope is to expose our congregation and the Kansas City area to some of the amazing people who make up our church in a way that inspires you to live out your faith and make a positive impact in our community. As you listen to today's conversation, I invite you to share this podcast with others. You can do that by going to core.org/podcasts. Now, let's welcome our guest for today's episode. Our guest for today is Todd Davidson, who serves in our student ministries here at the Leawood location. Todd has such a powerful short story to share, and I can't wait for you to get to hear it. It is a story that exudes passion and joy, reminding us that students are not the future of the church, that they are the present church, and we need to get out of their way and let them go. So I will get out of your way and we'll let Todd share his story with us. Todd, thank you so much for being here with us today and for sharing your story with us.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. So, Todd, let's get started because I want folks to hear your story.
Yeah.
We think you're an amazing guy. You're just your life experience, even now, and the amazing strength and grace with which you're living through some things. But share with us, first of all, let's start here. What do you do at Resurrection? Mm-hmm. How long have you been doing it? And what do you enjoy most about it?
I'm in student ministry. I focus mostly on middle school at the Leawood location. I've been on staff for almost 6 years, and my family's been here for like 11 or 12. So we came here looking for a church home and didn't want to be here. That's a whole nother funny story. But God had different plans, and here we are. And then a few years into that, they found me out. They realized I had been in student ministry for decades, and then ended up on staff. But it's been a real joy to be here, and happy that this season of life is this.
What's the best thing about for you? What do you enjoy most about youth ministry? You've been doing it for quite before you got to Resurrection.
Yeah,
because they discovered that you had been doing that for a while.
So in some contexts, I've been in student ministry for 27 years.
Wow.
Whether it's traveling in bands or being a volunteer or being on staff or whatever that looks like in a lot of different ways. And so I don't know, I was just the most awkward middle schooler, teenage person. I always wanted to be a professional athlete, and that's not how God made me. And so there's a big season of not feeling like I was valuable, right? And church and youth group provided that for me, and that's always just stuck with me, right? How do we love students, no matter who they are? And they're all weird and they're all awkward because we all were, right? And I consider myself, I still am. And so in my 40s, I still in my brain think I'm a middle schooler, and I look at my wife, I'm like, how have we been married this? How are we adulting? What's going on here, right? And so it brings me great joy. I just love I love their energy. Most people are God bless you, how do you do it? And I'm like, how do you not?
Yeah, wow.
Right? I mean, the joy and the energy and just knowing the world through students' eyes is just fantastic. And then to be an adult in their life that just gets to love them unconditionally is just super powerful. Yeah.
I would love to see. I would just love to see how many people in this world have had a career in youth ministry for that long, because youth ministry has such a high turnover rate, and you have been doing it for your whole life, and that's awesome.
I mean, there are some folks that have been around a long time, but a lot of them have moved into writing curriculum or doing, and so it. I'm a weird one, that's for sure.
Well, you have to be middle school. Yeah.
But to the blessing of the kids, so you've been doing youth ministry almost basically 27 years?
Yeah, since I was 19.
And I know you probably have several of these, but is there a kid story, that you saw something happen in the life of a kid that's just kind of one of your monuments?
Yeah. I mean, an easy one to point to is there's a young man now that's a United Methodist pastor. And I remember he was going off to college, and he's like, dude, we really think that you like have a calling of like ministry on your life. He goes, yeah. He goes, but I'm gonna go to business school. I'm gonna make a whole ton of money, and then I'll be a pastor down the road. And it was me and another adult leader. We're just laughing at. We're like, God bless you, bro. Good luck with all that, right? And like, probably middle of his junior year of college, he calls. He goes, I'm going to seminary. Like this defeated moment that like Todd might have been right about something, right? And like to watch him now, like I mean, I got to photograph his wedding. Like I've just been a part of his life we check in on a regular basis, and he's in town, and I get to see the ministry he's doing, you know. So I say all that because it's not about like every student becoming a pastor, but it's this idea that so many of us in student ministry don't get to see the fruits of what God's put in front of us, right? And so someone goes like, dude, why at 47 years old are you still doing this? Like, and I just look at them, I go, because I know it works.
Yeah. Wow.
And then they generally go, well, what do you mean? What does it work? And I go, I've got students that are raising kids that love Jesus, right? I've got former students that are pastors. I got former students that are lawyers. I got former students that are managing grocery stores and doing all the other things, right? But they're all doing it in this context that like, somebody loved them when they were young. Yeah. They showed them that because they love Jesus. And now the choices they make in their life are based on that foundation when they were the worst people ever on the planet, right? And now they are who they are now, right? And so like, you know, that young man as a pastor now is just, you know, a microcosm of like what I've been able to see in decades of student ministry, you know?
That's
such conviction.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about your faith journey, what your story of faith is, and are there any turning points in that story?
Yeah, you know, I mean, we shared a little bit. I mean, I grew up in a great church that had a great student ministry that was really driven by the adults that wanted this for their students, right? And so we'd have seminary students come spend 2 years with us and be in and out and be in and out. And that was great moments, and I grew a lot because of them. But really the foundation was like this group of parents that believed in it, right? Which is something beautiful about the Methodist Church. Sometimes when we move pastors around, it's really hard. But my congregation at that time owned it, and it was part of their identity. Like, bring somebody in to help do some stuff, but like, this is who we are. That community shaped me as a leader, and like having multiple family members. Like, you know, I say there's like 4 moms. Like, oh, that's my mom, and that's my mom, and that's my mom, right? Because they were always around and looking for you. But I came out of that, and I can honestly say that like when I went to college, I probably didn't know what it meant to love Jesus deeply for myself, and like to understand what God had for me, right? And as I struggled in college and I came back, you know, I was 19. My now mother-in-law, like I knew her well. She was an angel in my life back then as well, one of my moms. And she had like sold me out to the new youth person that was in, right? And said, hey, this guy, like he's back in town and he's kind of lost his way. Like, you mind like letting him hang out, you know? And God bless this guy. His name's Harlan Harper. He's still in town. And he, you know, he brought me in as a volunteer, and, you know, had learned some of the things I had led when I was like in high school. He's like, hey man, I heard you did these things. I think we miss it. Will you lead those? Oh, yeah, man, I got this, right? Like, real humble 19-year-old. No problem, bro. I'll show you how to do these things, right? And all along, right? Like, he was the one with grace, like, giving me a place to serve so that I didn't feel lost in the world. And then he invited me to go on the middle school mission trip that summer. It was to Des Moines, Iowa. I don't know what work we did. I don't know, whatever. But the thing that I clearly remember from that is looking at middle school students that were given everything they had, that had deep, unshakable faith, and me going, what is wrong with you, Todd, right? Like, look at these amazing middle school students that are full of joy and passion and giving everything they can on this serve trip with none of the skills to back it up, right? None of them knew how to use power tools or paint anything or even use a broom. But they were going to give everything that they knew how to give, and I got to walk with them in that. My now wife, we were dating then, and I remember coming back, and she's like, you are a different human being. Like, you are a changed person. And growing up, like, really traditional Methodist, I didn't really understand that, right? I didn't understand like this born again idea so much, you know. But if I would have been more in that evangelical, like that would have been my born again, claim my baptism, stand in front of everybody moment, right? I just didn't know it. I was just like, wow, this is really beautiful. And my trajectory for life like changed from that moment on, you know, like I served for years. My wife and I led high school small groups. Like, you know, we got married in that church and all those students were there at the ceremony, right? Like, and we were just young, silly kids, right? And God was using us in ways that we didn't deserve to be used, but like in beautiful, beautiful things. So
are you're literally, and I didn't mean to, because
yeah.
that going on a mission trip with middle-aged kids, wow, changed your life.
You bet. And I had grown up. I mean, I had been on 5 mission trips before that as a student myself, but something about leading the next generation just broke me in the best of ways, right? Wow. And I mean, almost every choice my wife and I have made since then has revolved around like, how do we continue to be that? Wow. Like in young people's lives, you know?
Wow. I think that a lot of people in the church have this view that they don't state, but the thought that I have given my life to working for Jesus, I've been a good person, so I feel like I'm protected in some way from the bad things in life. We know from experience that's not true.
It's not true.
And so
I wish it was, because boy, I've worked hard.
Right? Yeah. So can you share with us a little bit of your story that...
November of 2020, we were in the middle of retreat season. We call it Meta around here. So this is student retreats. I'm on staff, and the week before those retreats started happening, I found blood in my stool. And it's significant to me. I mean, it should be to everybody, but it's significant to me because I've had my younger cousin died of colon cancer, and that's how he discovered his, right? And so I was like, oh. And so, but it was retreat season. I set an appointment like right after that. So like the week before Thanksgiving, set an appointment to go see a doctor. Like, I'm not messing around with this, you know? And even in the middle of that retreat season, I told one person that just found me vulnerable for a moment, right? It was one of our volunteers. And he was so kind. And he's like, dude, you got this, you know? And we didn't even know what it was. And so lots of tests and all those stories later. Mid-December of 2020, I was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer at the age of 43. And so that's young. And I've never ate great in my life, but I haven't eaten bad, right? I haven't eaten poorly as well. And so just wrestling with all that, but just knowing that, all right, let's get after it. So New Year's Eve that year, had my first chemo treatment. It was awful. Like they've got to figure out how your body's going to react to stuff. And they gave me everything they could have, and it made me very, very, very sick. But, you know, you just get after it and you go do it. And so 3 years later, I'm not cancer free, but like we have a great understanding of what my cancer is and how we go after it. I have been so lucky, this is weird to say, that chemo has been effective. Like, so when I'm on chemo, it shrinks the tumors and takes care of them. And so now we're just working through the processes of like, how do we get Todd to where when he's not on chemo, cancer doesn't come back. And I don't know what led us to this moment, but Lindsay, my wife, and I early on were like, listen, like, we're just gonna be open about it, right? We're gonna allow people into our lives to know what's going on, and it's been really hard at moments, but it's been the right decision. And in student ministry and church life, we were warned by a couple people, like, be careful, right? I mean, like, we're in a big church, right? Like, you don't want your every moment to be people asking. And I just have felt peace. Like, I don't care. Like, everybody can ask, right? Because the reality is everybody's going to go through a moment like this at some point in their life, whether it's personally them or somebody they love, right? Cancer is not becoming less. All the other diseases aren't becoming less in this world. Tragedy is not becoming less in this world. And I am in no way like the perfect example how to do this, but if I can be a real and humble example of how to do this, and all my wins and all my failures, then hopefully it gives other people permission to like be there as well.
And as one of your volunteers, I've had a different kind of lens looking into you because you've maintained your position here at Resurrection through all of the treatments. And it's been wonderful to see how the staff supports you, and what you do so well is you tell the truth to adults, but you also tell the truth to youth. And what that communicates to them is that you believe they are, and their faith is strong enough to be your support.
Yeah.
And I kind of heard that same dynamic in you sharing that evangelical coming to Jesus moment, that maybe that was the time when the kids were teaching you. They were supporting you. They were coming in. And yeah, one of the things I think the church does so poorly is recognizing how adults can be lifted up in faith by youth and children. And
when people ask me now, Todd, how are you doing this? Like, you're just bebopping around and full of energy and all that. Like, what is going on? And like, you can go into like some big, speech about God's got me or whatever. But the reality is it's who God's put in my life. And I have 200 students showing up every week that are on my side that want to know what's going on and want explanations and like, how did you get cancer? How are you feeling? What's going on? What do your tests look like? Whatever. I've been praying for you. I've been saying, and they like write these notes with like crayons and markers and like slip them in my backpack and mail them to me and like bring me like gift cards for food and like all these things over and over and over again, right? And if we don't allow students to step up and listen to God when they feel those moments, right? If we're not honest and allow them to step into those moments, then what are we doing, right? Like, the church will die unless we allow young people to be who God's called them to be, And it's been a super hard lesson because, like, there's been financial needs that I've needed to do some different treatments. And everybody's like, Todd, let us raise money. I'm like, no, you can bring me food. You can come do whatever. You can pray for me. And like, stubborn old Todd's like, no, you're not going to pay for my stuff, right? Like, my wife has a good job. I have a great job. Like, we'll figure it out. We'll sell the house. We'll sell the cars. And one of my volunteers came to me. He's like, why are you so dumb? I go, what? Like, dude, you've like been so open and honest, allowed everybody to do this. And like, here's your sticking point, dude. Some people have means of like prayers and food and all that, and some people have means of money, man. Yeah. And when you decide to not allow us to do that, you're cutting down one of our gifts.
That's the way they do it. That's the way some people give. That's right.
And I'm like,
wow.
And they're like, hey, we're going to do it whether you want to do it or not. We would love if you're there with us. And so some of them grabbed hold of it. They just threw an afternoon. A bunch of my music buddies came and did music, right? And they raised a bunch of money to try to help my family.
I got to tell this story. So a week ago, 8 days ago, we baptized remember the baptism, over 50 kids.
Yeah.
First time we had a tub up, a huge tub.
Feeding trough tub full of water.
The kids were so excited. But before we did the baptism, we had different speakers. And so it was kind of a routine, go through the deal. I got up and I felt like I was 100 years old because I'm like these kids. So I was like, so Robert, just say what you need to say. Don't expect any connection with the kids. And we're just kind of, and then I'm walking around and I hear this voice, and it was different from every other person who got on the stage that night. And it was Todd, and I looked around and it was Todd. And it was like he knew exactly how to talk to the kids, to connect with them. It's the same thing. I've heard 1,000 preachers. I've heard 1,000 great preachers, like people who like study homiletics. They know, they can, as we say, kill it. And then I've heard Adam Hamilton, who when he preaches here, that it's not so much. I mean, he is a great
Yeah.
But that's not. It's that he loves people. Like,
Yeah.
he loves
Those are his
people.
people.
These are his, and he loves them.
Yeah.
He loves it.
Yeah.
I was talking when I made him, and it was casual language. I said, it's like the way you act like you love your people. So, and I didn't mean you're. But he says, I do love these people. He turned to me and said, I do love these. But that's what I saw that night with the youth. So I don't know how much more time, but I got 3 questions up because I think I love the way you and your wife partnered through everything, the calling,
Yeah.
ministry.
Oh man, and there have been
No
bad moments.
There are no perfect
Thank you.
marriages. There are no
Yeah.
perfect marriages.
Yeah.
There are no perfect marriages, but there is a partnership there, and
Yeah.
it comes across.
Yeah.
So I'd like for you, number one, what do most people miss about kids and youth that you wish we? Then number two is, what do most people miss about family?
Mm-hmm.
And then number three, what do most people, and from your experience, what do most people miss about marriage? Folks miss about marriage.
Okay. Whew. I would say the majority of the world's adults miss two things about students. One, they miss that, like, they're students.
Yeah.
Like, let them be silly. Let them have fun. Let them radiate joy, and soak all of that in and bottle it if you can, right? Because, like, when we get to adults and we've had all this experience, we got all these brick walls that don't allow us to go there, right? Mm-hmm. I was at a basketball game the other day, rec game, just kids being silly, right? They were shooting half-court shots where the game's completely out of control. And there was an adult there who was like, this is an abomination of the game. I was like, you just said of a game. Of a game.
It's a game.
And these kids paid to be here. They can make this basketball game whatever they want. If they're not hurting each other, if they're not hurting others, and they didn't hurt you, they never talk smack on you one time, sir.
Right.
Let them have joy, man. Let them have joy, right? So let those students have joy and then soak it in, because they experience joy in just a completely different way than we do as adults, you know? Two, that sometimes we talk about, like, the future. They are the future, and we all just need to acknowledge that they are the now.
Yeah.
Right, and they express it in a different way. They soak it in a different way. I mean, they work in a different way. All those things, like, we can identify all those things across all the generations, right? But man, like, if we're not advocating and letting them run, they're gonna kick us out, and we ain't gonna have a voice anyways, right? And it's not about us or them. But, like, let's do it now. Like, let's let them talk, right? And it's every organization, friends. I mean, it's schools, it's church, it's government, it's sports, it's everything, you know. But like, let's hear what they have to say. They've got good stuff. And then let them act, because that's all they want to do. Yeah. They want their hands dirty, and they want to go. So let's get out of the way.
Yeah. And then marriage and family. You don't have to.
Yeah. Marriage and family. You know, it's a really beautiful season for me, because now I have a 19 or 17-year-old, right? So as I lead students...
Who adore you, by the way.
Well, that's debatable, but they're still 19 and 17-year-olds.
They're still 19 and 17. They're still 19 and 17. But I was the other day you preached.
Yeah.
And I saw them... you can read, like, the way kids are with their parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, early on, I just told them, like, hey, I'm never going to talk about you from stage, right? I'm never going to do those things. And I feel like I've done a decent job at that, and I think that's helped. But so being in the stage, like, I used to always talk about I'm in student ministry, but now, like, my language has shifted to where, like, it's really about it's students and families, like, what's best for students and families. You know, the adults in their life are way more important than anybody else, right? Their parents in their life, their guardians in their life, their main adult human is the most important stuff. And so I can only be with them, you know, the students that's really active. If I get 3 hours a week with them, right, that's like, and so what I tell parents all the time is quite often as they move through the middle school and high school ages, they're kind of like, oh, I'm almost done, right? I'm almost whatever. And I was just with a friend that's got, like, a 4-year-old the other day, and, you know, he's just sharing it's a hard season. And I go, hey, man, it doesn't get easier, but it gets different, right? And it becomes more in the realm of, like, what you understand. I go, so don't miss those moments. Like, my boys drive now. I completely miss car rides with them. You know, like, my younger had to be at baseball early today and then had an hour before school. I'm like, I'm meeting you for breakfast. He's like, you don't got to get up early. Like, I know I don't got to get up early, but I want to get up early, right? So continue to grab as many moments with your students as you can, right? Because they'll all matter, and some of them will really be awful, but they all matter, right? And then when it comes to marriage, Lindsay and I have been through a lot. Like, ministry about ruined us 15 years ago. Which was why I wasn't working at a church anymore. And I think, and I can really only speak from the male's perspective, but I think that season of life is really hard. When you're working and chasing careers and you're trying to raise kids and you're trying to live up to whatever it is, and then your body hurts more than it's ever hurt before. Just hang in there. There's going to be moments that aren't rainbows. Probably more moments that aren't rainbows than there are rainbows, right? But it's so worth it on the other end of it, right? Even if you have a season of you're just like, I don't like that person at all, right? I don't like my kids. I don't like my house. I don't like my job. Like, those are all real seasons, right? I would just say that just hold on, right? If you can. That's not always the case, right? That's not always the case. I get it.
And in many cases, it's the hanging on is the worst thing
you
can do, because it's just,
But always give it an extra beat if you can. And then there's moments where you can't. And I've seen beautiful, beautiful things come out of those moments, right? But for Lindsay and I, I'm just thankful that she was really patient with me, and vice versa, right? That we sat through really hard things.
Todd, thank you. Those were 3 unexpected questions I threw at you. You answered them but I knew you would, because your spirit is like immeasurable.
Well, thank you. I got to get on stage and lead worship the other day at Sunday school, which I don't think I've really hardly ever done here, right? But I've traveled in bands, like it's something that I've done and did. And I just looked at the students like, let's have the most fun ever praising God.
Wow.
And it was me, and I was like, I ain't singing. I'm playing guitar. It's up to you all. And they're like, please sing. I'm like, nope. And so I just stood there and looked at this little 7th grade girl who has this huge voice. And I was like, sing louder, sing louder, sing louder. And she's just like, okay. And by the end, one of the adults came over to me and goes, boy, when you started that song, they go, I don't know if she could do it. Like, she was a mouse. But by the end, like, my arms were goosebumps. Because this girl just like, whoo, unleashed, right? And this big old voice that I knew she had came out of her, right? Wow. And the adult goes, bro, you're just light.
Wow.
I go, man, that's the greatest compliment you could ever say, right? Wow. Like, through all the storms and everything, if you can, like, just be bold, courageous, and kind, and just shine light, like, who knows what's going to reflect back on you, right? What's going to reflect back. And this season of cancer for me has just been this beautiful moment of, like, reflection of all the things God's allowed me to do. It's like the funeral without the funeral, right? Like when we all get together with families afterwards, right? And we talk about all the amazing things these people were. I've had this moment of, like, hearing all those things. Cards of, like, you meant so much to me when I was 11 when you said this. And I'm like, I don't remember what I said, but thank you, Lord, for, like, speaking through me in that moment, right? And so, like, and what is absolutely a hard season, like, it's reflected just how great God has been in our lives and how we've got to ride that. So
wow.
Todd, thank you for that word of hope. We know that there are people out there who are going through similar situations who just might need to hear, just hang on, and the mutuality with which you speak about ministry. If we can be light for each other, that's what. That's the good stuff. Yeah, it is. Thanks for your continued openness about your treatments and your healing, and just for your presence here.
I gotta say, as Angie's gonna close us out, the story of the little girl and how the song begins with her barely singing, and you kept encouraging her to sing, and you're playing it with all of your might, and by the end of the song, she's like, that's a paradigm, that's a metaphor for so much of who you are and who this church is.
And who people can become when people believe in that.
Oh,
that'll preach.
Someone get a notepad. Let's go.
Todd, you are a gift.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I love you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here with us today and for tuning in to another episode. Don't forget to share this with friends by going to core.org/podcasts. And we look forward to having you here again.